at 6 p.m. on Wednesday, March 31st, here at the West Central Area Secondary School. I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. That was hard. You have a reminder for visitors that are with us tonight. Minnesota continues under the COVID-19 peacetime emergency that impacts how we are to conduct board meetings. The board respectfully requests that all staff and guests attending our WCA board meetings comply with social distancing and face covering requirements. Complying with requirements demonstrates a level of courtesy to others, helps to protect everyone from the spread of the virus. If social distancing is maintained, face coverings may be removed to address the board or the audience. Our mission statement is to challenge and support our students, staff, and families in each person's growth as an engaged learner and successful citizen of our community. I'll move into roll call, starting with Christensen. Here. Gross. Here. Nessman is here. Sabalik. Here. Sandstead. Here. Strunk. Here. And Ulrich. Here. All right. And with that, we're going to move into our agenda for tonight. We do have Katie Klanderud and Gail Gilman with us here tonight from MSBA. And Katie, I'm going to pass the conversation over to you.
Great. All right. Well, thank you, Michelle. Appreciate that. And at any point, if there's anything that makes it uncomfortable as far as you can't see the screen or hear something, or that you're hearing, I don't know if any of you have heard those, like what is it? Like the typewriter noise in the background or anything like that, with microphones, those kinds of things, just let us know and we'll do our best to make adjustments. So thank you all for having us here this evening. So hopefully you can see my PowerPoint. Okay, that's up there. I'm Katie Klanderud. I'm with the Minnesota School Boards Association, and I'm sure many of you are familiar with us. I know we've seen many of you at Phase 1 and Phase 2, and other opportunities that we have as well. So we have been doing in-services with boards since last April. So we have been doing this a while, and it's always interesting how each one looks a little bit different because of the different, whether it's Zoom or Google Meets or what it is, it's always an interesting setup for us. So our agenda for this evening, we'll be working through introductions of myself and Gail, you as a board team. We are going to be looking at 5 stages of board development, the MSBA board governance model, doing some of that consensus building discussion. I had the opportunity to speak with many of you on the phone regarding questions, thoughts, or ideas for this evening, and wanted to reassure you that what we're doing here this evening is to work on and talk about and practice some of those kinds of things, and an opportunity for good conversation. So around consensus building. And then we'll do a wrap up, and we're looking at generally when we work with boards for doing the mutual expectations in services, we generally are looking at 2.5 to 3 hours. So we want to make sure that everybody's aware. We will take a break or two or whatever is needed this evening. So I'll just introduce myself quickly, then I'll pass it off to Gail. So again, I'm Katie Klanderud, the Director of Board Development at MSBA, was a school board member before having the opportunity to come to MSBA and live vicariously through all of you. So grateful to be here, and feel free at any time if you have any questions, whether it's this evening or in the future, feel free to give us a call. So I'll pass it off to Gail.
Thank you, Katie, and good evening, everybody. Like Katie, I'm just happy to be with you today. We always enjoy the opportunity to meet with board teams because it gives you a chance to talk, to discuss, to improve, to tweak, all the kinds of things that make you a high-performing board, and that's important to us. It's important to you. It's important to your stakeholders as well. And so I also want to take this opportunity to thank you for your ongoing membership in our association. We are pleased to serve you as the go-to organization. So many of you are familiar that we provide lots of different resources in addition to in-services such as this evening. We have our leadership conference, our phase leadership trainings, negotiation seminars, strategic plannings, school board self-evaluation. So we want to do whatever we can to make your work that much easier. As Katie said, my name is Gail Gilman. I serve as Director of Strategic Planning and Board Leadership. I joined the MSBA team in 2017 and started my work with Katie in board development. And then almost 2 years ago, I segued to working more with strategic planning. I joined the team after a long career with the University of Minnesota, being on faculty there, and then worked with Minnesota Board on Aging. My interest in serving with MSBA and joining the team is that, like Katie, I am a former school board member. I served on the New Ulm Board of Education for 2 terms, and you're actually joining me in my home in New Ulm this evening. So welcome to what we call the city of charm and tradition, and I live just a little bit south of you, as most of you know, kind of in the Mankato area. So certainly happy to be with you. You'll note that both Katie and I have used the term board team. Katie had it on the agenda as well. And so a definition of that is board team is the elected board members and the superintendent. And we know how important it is for you to be a united, a unified, a cohesive team. So you'll hear us use that term a lot throughout the evening. And you'll also know that as elected board members, you aren't going to get your work done without your superintendent in place. And your superintendent can certainly tell you that he needs you to help set the vision, the direction, so that he can then do some of the management portions of the policies and procedures that you have in place. So that's a little bit about me. Katie, was there anything you wanted to add about you in the form of introductions before we go around, and I'll ask them to do some introductions as well?
Sure. So I've been at MSBA 15 years now. Like I said, I was a school board member before that, but worked with a variety of different boards of local nonprofits as well as national as well. So glad to be here. Go ahead.
Very good. All right. Thanks, Katie. So we want to get to know each of you. As Katie said, we've had some interaction with some of you because you were so gracious to provide us with some feedback on things that you would like us to discuss this evening. But we still want to get to know a little bit more about you. So what we'd like to do is have each of you introduce yourself and give us the number of years, or share the number of years that you have been on the board. And then, because Katie and I know from being board members that wearing the school board member hat is one of many things that you do. So just a quick update on the other hats that you wear when you're away from the board table. We'd appreciate knowing that. So name, years of service on the board, and other hats that you wear. And who would like to go first? It seems like your chair should go first, don't you think? Okay.
I can certainly do that.
Okay, sounds good.
My name's Michelle Nessman. I am the board chair. I've been on the West Central Area School Board for a little over 6 years. My husband and I have 4 boys in the district between the ages of 11 and 17 in June. And I own a digital marketing agency and sales consulting business.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. I'm going to have you tag somebody else to do an introduction.
How about we just go to the right? Terry?
Okay.
My name is Terry Christensen. I've been on the board. This will be my 5th year. My wife is on staff here at secondary. My brother and I farm together. We've had 3 kids that have we've had 2 graduate and 1 that we hope will graduate this year.
Okay.
No, he's our youngest, and he'll graduate this year from West Central as well. So.
Okay, very good. As a farm girl, shout out to the farmers in the room here and listening as well. Thank you, Terry. Who would you like to tag next for us?
Go ahead, Kayla.
I'm Kayla Sandstead. I have been on the board for 3 months, and I am a mother to 3 kids who are all in the school district, ranging from 4th grade to 10th grade. And I am a RN and I manage an assisted living in Hoffman.
Okay. Thank you, Kayla. You've been busy with the assisted living. I can only imagine, having worked with Board on Aging for a few years. So
Yeah.
thank you. Okay, Kayla, who are you going to tag for the next introduction?
Darren.
Darren Gross. Been on the board for a little over 2 years. I got 2 daughters in the district, an 8th grader and a junior. My wife also is on staff at WCA. My other hats I wear is I'm the electric superintendent of the city of Elba Lake.
Very good. Thanks, Darren.
Gary.
Yeah, Gary Sabalik. I've been on the board 5 years. I've got 5 children, 1 in the district, 4 out. And I own a small ag retail in one of our towns in the district.
Very good. Thanks, Gary.
Yes.
Maya Ulrich, going on 6 years on the board. I have 5 kids. 1 is graduated, 4 still in the district. Junior, freshman, 6th grader, and a 1st grader.
Okay.
And I manage a campground in the district here.
Very good. Thanks, Maya.
Sarah Strunk. I have been on the board. This is the start of my 4th year. My husband and I farm by Hoffman, and I'm also a CPA. I do taxes for farmers. I have 3 kids, 6, 9, and 13.
Okay, very good. So busy season for you with CPA work right now. Yes, very good. Thank you, Sarah.
And we haven't heard from Dale yet.
And we need, yes, superintendent.
I'm new to the district. I've been here for just over 18 months now. Started administration in 1990. All of those except for 6 have been as a superintendent. The other 6 have been as a secondary principal.
Very good.
I am married. I have 2 children, adult children. One's 25, the other one's 30. One's employed as a business education teacher in Detroit Lakes. And my other child, my daughter, is in Olympia, Washington, and she's a registered dietitian.
Okay, thank you. Well, thank you for the introductions. We appreciate that. It's good to get to know a little bit more about you. I always think it's interesting to look at 2 different things. One, the number of years of service. Katie and I see everything across the board from Kayla, who's at 3 months, just really learning the ropes here, to those of you that are 6 years on the board. That would be Maya and Michelle. So you've got that variety of what we would call seasoned board members. And then you've got the newer board members. And with that brings the stability. It also brings the new ideas for the group as well. So thank you for that. And the other thing that we're always just interested in hearing is the other things that you are busy with in addition to your families and your work. And so it really drives home the point of you as board members are in a governance role. And then what a blessing that you have superintendent, administration, and staff who can carry out all the responsibilities within the district. So next, we want to talk about some guidelines or some norms. And you can see that Katie has those up on the PowerPoint right now. And just in general, we always like to use these to set the tone for our discussion and our time together. So first of all, competence is truly within the group. You will get out of it what you put into it. With that being said, please trust your fellow board members that there will be honest, open discussion. Do you always agree? Probably not. I don't think we ever did when I was on the board, but certainly having that open, honest discussion and being respectful. Don't suffer needlessly. Katie mentioned, I don't think we tried to scare you away with that 2.5 to 3 hours. Actually, because Katie and I have done so many of these, the time kind of flies by. It may not seem that way for you, but don't suffer needlessly. So if we'll do a check-in, and if we don't, please let us know. Yeah, maybe we should take just a minute or a few minutes to take a break. Also, it's okay to say, I don't know. Sometimes as we're talking through ideas, thoughts, trying to make decisions, sometimes you just don't know, and it might be that you have to think about it a little bit more. It's not going to get solved this evening. And at the same time, you might ask some questions that really stump Katie and I as well, that we might not be able to answer. And so if that's the case, we will certainly follow up and get back to you. And then lastly, recognize the commitment to be here. And really, I like to say thank you for your commitment. Again, having been board members, Katie and I know how much time and energy, and sometimes blood, sweat, and tears, a lot of tears once in a while too, that went into the role of being on the board. So really want to do a shout out of thanks to each of you elected to the board, and also to your superintendent as well. The last year plus has been an extremely challenging time with the pandemic and the issues dealing with the civil unrest. So you've really had to pivot, and we certainly thank you for doing that. And with that, Katie and I will be teaming this evening and facilitating. Katie, should we move on to stages of board development? Okay. The stages of board development are up on the screen right now. And for those of you that have been part of our phase 3, you will many times see this in the training, during the workshop. And then if you've ever participated in some of the other activities that we provide, you'll see this as well. And so I'll describe the stages. And as I'm doing that, think about where you as a board team fit into these stages. And I'm going to start with the word forming on the right-hand side. Forming means that as a board, you're coming together. It's kind of an orientation time, especially when you've just experienced a change. So you actually have a new board member, and you've had some new board members. You've got a newer superintendent. So when you're forming, it's an orientation time. The group comes together. You start to get to know each other, and you start to form as a group. And then as you continue working together, we call this next phase the storming phase. Sometimes dissatisfaction, and maybe dissatisfaction because those who have been on the board are like, oh, we're not moving fast enough, or, there's a lot of questions. And for those that are new, maybe dissatisfaction because you're thinking, oh my gosh, this is a lot to take in. This is a lot to figure out. I don't know. How I should be voting, how I should be making decisions. So in the storming, it could be kind of that chaotic time, maybe, who's in charge, with leadership, and just really a trial of the group process. And then as we move around the circle, the next phase is norming, or we also call this the resolution phase. Eventually, you kind of get to that point where, okay, I understand where folks are coming from. I understand what my role is. And you start to move into the operations go a little bit more quickly, and things go a little bit more smoothly in the norming phase. And then you move into the performing phase, which is probably the most fun. Actually, all the stages, I think I've had experience in each of them. They're all pretty fun. But with the performing stage, this is a time of being super productive. Now you really start practicing the craft of being a board member. You become very effective in your work. Sometimes we say it's like a partnership where you can almost finish one another's sentences. You know where folks are coming from. Sometimes decisions are made very quickly, and Katie and I we always want to caution you that when you get to that performing stage, sometimes you need to slow down just a little bit, because you have your stakeholders out there, your students, your staff, your community members, and they're thinking, oh my gosh, this board never talks about anything. They make decisions very quickly. And in fact, you just have become so cohesive. You're making decisions quickly. So in this stage, sometimes you want to slow down a little bit and then make sure that you bring everybody along. So as you are passing resolutions, your chair probably wants to give a little background on we've had work we've had study sessions. We've been talking about this particular topic for the last 3 months, and now we've come to the board table and we're prepared to vote tonight. So performing is a fun stage to be in, but you want to make sure that all your stakeholders are moving along with you. And then at the top of the circle is the deforming. Sounds negative. It's not. It's a time of change, termination, endings. And so in order for Sarah or Kayla to become a part of your board, someone has obviously left the board. And so you want to hopefully have used that time to say goodbye to whoever is no longer on the board, but then also a time of it's letting go, but then it's that welcoming. And thus the process starts all over again. So as you think about that with the descriptors, where do you think you are as a board team right now? Anybody want to share? Are you in the, do you feel like you went through a deforming, a termination phase with former board member? Don't be shy.
My honest opinion, I can see parts of all 5 of these in the last 3 months.
Okay.
I see us in, depending on what stage, what kind of business we're trying to discuss, or I think all of these have been kind of intertwined.
Okay. How do the rest of you feel? Anybody see it differently? Do you feel like
what I usually do at this point is start calling people by name.
Oh, we'll just go right around the room real quickly and do that. So Michelle, and then I'm going to go down the list. Terry, where do you feel you're at right now as a board team?
I guess I would agree with that. We've been, I can as well see every one of these terms been through and not in that too many months ago.
Okay, very good. Kayla, how about for you? Where do you feel like you are at and where the board's at?
Well, I'm definitely at the forming stage.
Okay, very good.
But I have seen all of these stages because I mean, I saw the deforming when through Jill's last meetings.
Okay.
And then obviously my stage in the forming, and I've seen the storming, just with different, I mean, obviously some of the more heated topics, but I've also seen the norming and performing too throughout a lot of the meetings. So.
All right. Very good. Thank you for that. Darren, how about you? Where do you see the group?
Yeah, I guess I can see how we're in all different spots on this, from performing, deforming, forming, but I guess most of the time I'd say we're performing.
Okay, very
and
good.
Productive.
Good.
And then,
very good. Thank you. Let's see, Gary.
Yeah, I would say, I think it depends on the nature of the subject matter.
Okay.
I think there's a lot of strong relationships in the room. But then there's also strong perspectives on, some of the sensitive matters that we've dealt with, including, the buildings that we've been dealing with. But, I'd say most all the subjects we're very performing on.
Okay, very good. Maya, how about you?
I guess I wouldn't disagree with anyone. I would probably say that, the reason that we're in this particular meeting today is because we're probably at a storming situation when it comes to, where we go with our facilities going forward.
Okay.
And so, I think that's why we're here today. I think we operate pretty fluidly. There's no major issues, but obviously when we come down to what are we going to do next, there's probably some dissatisfaction, and there's some things that are storming. So that's probably why we're here.
Okay, good. Thank you for that perspective. Sarah, how about for you?
I would say
I'm pretty much on the same page as the last two.
Okay.
I think we're probably somewhere between norming and performing for the majority of the things that do. We respect each other and we work very well together. But when it comes to the building issues that we're dealing with, I would say we're definitely probably in the storming area.
Okay, good. And that's not unusual when you've got the really tough decisions, and it is just a sign that you're having lots of good discussion. But of course, you at some point need to come together with consensus. Dale, do you want to weigh in?
My experience here is that this board is a high-performing board, and they're very well informed. They study the issues. They make very good decisions because they don't just come to the table for a board meeting without having the background information. So that's really a strong trait for this board. The thing that they've also done is they have a high level of respect for the staff, the administration. And one of the things that you mentioned early tonight was, board vision and administrative management. And they've given us great freedom through this year of COVID crisis to do things that we think are right as administrators. So I feel that support there. And then just as Maya said, probably the thing where we're sitting with our facilities issue is our storming issue, because we do have information to look at. We have data, we have perceptions of what might happen if we choose one option or the other. And nobody's wrong in the beliefs that they have. And that's the dilemma that we're in is how do we come together? So not that decision will be made tonight as we understand, but probably just some skills to help us come to consensus with the board. So I think that's the one issue that has us working really hard right now.
Okay, very good. I appreciate all the feedback on that, good feedback, and a variety of feedback too, which is expected because you're all coming from different perspectives. Well, as you move forward and you are making decisions, especially the more challenging decisions, think about these stages of board development and where you're at and how you can move yourself towards that performing location on this diagram. So with that, Katie, let's move on. I'll talk about the board governance model. And so what we're doing is kind of setting the stage for you. I'll discuss the board governance model, and then we'll move on with some other related topics on consensus building. So as you see on the diagram on the screen is the board governance model. And for board members, I know we've got a lot of people that are probably watching this evening, but for board members, this is something that's very familiar to you. You are introduced to this in phase 1 when you're a new board member. You get to see it in phase 3, and you get to see it a number of other times as we conduct trainings and workshops for you. And so a few things about the governance model. You'll see in the upper right-hand corner, it talks about the board governs. The board governs by setting parameters and expectations. And then in the lower right-hand corner, the superintendent manages. The superintendent is the one who provides leadership and supervision. As you think about the board's role in governance, at the top of the circle at 12 o'clock, the key here is that you as board members are responsible for establishing expectations, setting parameters, and also establishing a strategic plan. The strategic plan is your visionary roadmap for how you are going to make decisions for the next 3 to 5 years. So that is the number one responsibility, are those 3 things under establish. Tied into that is the adopt segment of the pie, of the clock, if you will. And in this section, you are adopting policies, you are adopting a budget, and you are adopting or accepting contracts, both for staff and for other services. And then as we cross into the blue section where the superintendent's responsibilities lie and the superintendent manages, so once you have those parameters, expectations set, then it's up to your superintendent. You've now delegated those responsibilities. So your superintendent will develop plans, they'll develop procedures, they will work with the staff in the hiring and in the staff development, and then they will also start implementing plans based on procedures and policies that you as a board have set. In addition to that, your superintendent will continue to monitor the plans, the procedures, the policy, and the staff. And that usually is not done in isolation, but it is done with other staff, other administrative team members, and other staff that will assist with that. Now you'll notice that there is a black and white line that goes through the circle. This is what we call the friendly or the neighborly fence. This means that, again, you as a board aren't acting just on your own, and the superintendent is not either. So there's always conversation, feedback, updates that are being shared with the superintendent. And then as we move back up around the circle, evaluate. So as a board, you have one person that you hire, and you have one person that you evaluate, and that is your superintendent. That is your responsibility. Your superintendent hires, provides staff development and evaluation for all other staff. And then also you evaluate the outcomes. So based on the parameters you set, the policies, the budgets, you also will evaluate the outcomes to see if you're on target. And even as that relates to your strategic plan, you will then start evaluating the outcomes. Did we do what we said we were going to do? And then the process starts circling around again. Probably the most important thing in this diagram is at the center or the heart of the board governance model, and that is student achievement for all students. So no matter what you are doing, you are always focused on the students, and that is what your work is about. And then you can see that the arrows go back and forth in all the categories, so you all are working towards that same end, if you will, with student achievement. So that is the board governance model. And hopefully you have found that a helpful tool, and that as you have been governing, and for those that are listening in this evening, hopefully this is a way of helping the community understand your role with the board governance model as well. Questions or comments? And I can see that the sun has really come into my window here, so in a second I will pull a shade so you can actually see my face again, but I'm glad you can see the screen much more clearly than you can see me. Any comments or questions with the board governance model? Okay, if not, Katie, anything you want to add about the governance model?
No, I think, Gail, you said that, the center or the heart of it, and the whole point of the board governance model is we are making our decisions about what's best for student achievement. So everything you do, you should be able to ask yourself, what's best for student achievement? Because, well, as you know, just with buildings alone, if I vote for this, these people will be unhappy. If I vote for this, these people will be unhappy. And so what you have to do is get the information, right? Look at what it is, what's our focus, what's our goal and our strategic plan, what are the parameters, what's our budget, what can we do here, and then make what's the decision about what's best for student achievement for all of your students. And sometimes that means different things for different students, right? And so we look at the greater good as much as we can. So great. Thank you, Gail.
You bet. Time for some consensus building activities, Katie?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Unless you had some other things that you wanted to move on to. Okay.
No, this is great. So what I'm going to do is you all received another sheet of paper called, or we're going to hand out one called the robbery. So if you could pull that out or pass that out. All right, great. So what we have here is on, you can see it on the screen as well as you have it in front of you. So we have a story and it's made of just a few sentences. Okay. And so what I want you to think about is when you get that information, whether it's from your superintendent and staff, or perhaps from community members, sometimes it's limited in scope because of where is coming from. I'm sure the superintendent's staff are trying to give you as much information as they can. But there's also other perspectives out there. And I think Gail and I can attest that, we've learned that as board members as well. Your information or perspectives are very different from different ways. So what we're going to do here is I want you to look at these 3 sentences. Is it 3? 1, 2, 3, 4. Sorry, 4 sentences. So it's up on the screen. It's in front of you. I'm also going to read it. So you will receive the information 3 different ways. Okay. And then once I'm done reading it, what I ask you to do is to look at the options that you have to the right there. You have 3 options. You have true, which means the statement is true. You have false, which means, nope, the statement is false. Or then you have question mark. Nope, I'm going to need more information. Okay. But it is important to put a circle around your answer. Okay, everybody clear? Any questions before? All right, here we go. I'm going to read it to you. A businessman had just turned off the lights in the store when a man appeared and demanded money. The owner opened a cash register. The contents of the cash register were scooped up and the man sped away. A member of the police force was notified promptly. Okay, so now I want you to take some time to read through the 11 statements here. Then to your right, mark true, false, or question mark. If you have any questions, indicate somehow, raise your hand, let us know. We'll be happy to answer it. I'm sure if you have the question, others probably do as well. So, all right, so I'll give you just a couple minutes here. Looks like we have maybe 1 or 2 people left, or is everybody done? Anybody need more time?
Nope.
Great, thank you. All right. So now what I would like to do is we're going to talk about this as a board, right? And work on building consensus around what is the correct answer for each statement, true, false, or question mark. Okay, so keeping in mind when we are building consensus, it's not about, Sarah agreed with me last time or voted for what I wanted, so I'm going to give her one, right? So I'll go with whatever she says, right? That's not how we make decisions about our students, right? Or is it, well, let's just see where we're at. How many thumbs up? Okay, let's just go with that, right? Building consensus is also not about, well, I'm right, and obviously Darren is wrong, because we never agree on anything. So, you know, because Darren says yes, I'm going to say no, right? But consensus is about the opportunity to hear all sides, look at, it's not about win or lose, look at more than option A and B. Is there an option C? Is that a possibility? Okay. All right. So now we're going to go through this as a board team. So what you just did is you individually went through to answer these is just like when you receive your information, let's say your board packet, right? You get the information, you read through it, whether it's formally done, you know, in notes, or if it's in your head, you're thinking, yeah, that makes sense, or I don't know if I can support that, right? So, and then you're out in the community, right? And a community member says, hey, Katie, what do you think about that? I hear you guys are going to talk about that at our board meeting tonight, you know? And then I might say, well, of course I'm not going to vote for that. I mean, you know, in the information I've received, I just don't see it, right? Or do we say, I'm gathering information, we're going to have the discussion at the board table, right? Okay. So here we go. Number 1, a man appeared after the owner had turned off his store lights. Okay. So I'm going to ask Gary. Gary, what did you select for that one?
True.
Okay. Gary selected true. Anybody else have anything different?
I said false.
Okay, who was that?
I have a question mark. Maya has false.
Okay. So we have a couple of we have a question mark, we have a couple of false, we have a true.
I had a true, but I believe it's a question mark.
Okay. So tell me why.
I believe it says a businessman had just turned off the lights, and we don't know if the businessman is the owner.
Okay.
He could be an employee.
Okay. All right. Any other thoughts around that one?
Why I said question mark is because he could have appeared before that. That's just when the man noticed it.
Okay. All right. Anybody else?
Yeah, I just said false because it doesn't say if the businessman and the owner are the same person.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So I guess it could be a question mark.
Okay. Could be. So you've changed your mind.
Well, it could be, yeah. I would say that it's not necessarily true.
Okay. But does it make it for sure false?
No. So it could be a question mark.
Okay.
They're all questions.
Could be.
Sorry, Gary.
No, I think you're right. I agree with them. Question mark.
Okay.
Do we have consensus?
So where are we at on that? You're there in the room, so you can see each other's eyes better, certainly better than I can. Is there anybody that really that couldn't agree with question mark? So are we good with that one? I want to hear it if you're not happy.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Number 2, the robber was a man. Darren, what do you think?
I put true.
Okay, Darren put true.
I put question mark.
Okay, why is that?
Why? Because there could have been somebody else.
Okay.
I put a question mark because it's not clear if it was actually a robbery.
That too.
Ah.
It never says who scooped up the money.
Right.
So why do we think it's it may or may not be a robbery?
Because it doesn't tell us who picked the money up. It just said it was scooped up.
Okay, but it could be a robbery, right?
Right.
What and you know, look at the top of your page there, or even the top of the screen. What's it say?
It's just the title.
It says robbery, Katie.
Yeah, it says robbery,
It does say
right?
robbery at the top.
Yep.
We weren't told to look at the title. We were told to look at the words.
Oh,
Four
okay.
sentences, I think.
More sentences. Right.
Well, and keep in mind, what do we think? You know, sometimes we see a headline, right? If we had only seen the headline, how would we have answered this? You know, is it a robbery? If we only saw that headline. Yes, sometimes that can be a bit deceiving. We really need to read in, okay? So the robber was a man. True, false, or question mark?
I still say true. I say true.
I say true.
Okay.
The man demanded the money, so I'm gonna say that it was a man.
So that alone makes him a robber, whether or not he got the money. That
Yeah.
But it says the
Well, not true.
contents of the cash register were scooped up and a man sped away. It doesn't say who took the contents.
So are you a robber if you don't actually get the cash? That would be my question. Like if you come in and demand it,
You're an attempted robber.
an attempted robber.
Maybe the robber was in cahoots with the businessman or the owner. Two other key players. Or maybe there's another player.
I was thinking there could be another one.
Yeah.
Okay. It's funny in doing this, several times I've done this, and I would say probably 8 out of 10 times the word cahoots comes up. So it's quite strange.
Minnesota, nice.
That is Minnesota. He's in cahoots. All right. So we've heard true, we've heard question mark, we've heard, is it even a robbery? What do you think?
I think it's true.
I think I agree with Darren and Kayla that even though it was unsuccessful, he's still a robber. He's an attempted robber.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I think you'd tend to believe the guy that sped away took the cash, but we don't know that.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And so anytime you demand money, are you a robber?
Could be a debt collector.
Mm-hmm. Could be I've worked there, you know, for the last 3 weeks and I've yet to be paid.
Or maybe the owner took it and it was his money.
Okay.
Then you might ask, why were the police called?
Mm-hmm.
It's a good question, but it doesn't.
Because they were in cahoots. Didn't you hear that?
Yeah, doesn't necessarily.
Can you give us 4 more sentences? Like a lot of
really
good information.
Filler sentence in between each one.
Back.
Yeah.
story on the back or what?
Again, give people 8 sentences.
So sometimes we have to come back for a conversation and ask for more information, right? Sometimes we need to come back and say, you know, could we send it to the back to the committee? Do we ask the superintendent to go back and work with staff to get more information? to bring back to us. Because we don't know if it's a robbery, right? Even though it says it is, but is it really? But it's up to you. This is your board decision, not me. So what do you think? True, false, or question mark?
Question mark.
Question mark.
I hear 2 question marks.
Question mark.
I'm sticking with question mark.
Okay. I think I've heard 4.
I still
Make it 5.
I still think it was a man.
Still think it's a
Still think the
man?
robber was a man.
I'm true. I'm staying with,
But do you have facts to prove that, Matt?
this is a robbery and it says the man demanded money. It wasn't the business owner who had originally had it.
It wasn't the business owner?
The business owner shut the lights off
Yeah.
when a man appeared. So unless the businessman can all of a sudden become 2 of himself, that would mean that another person.
The owner. Do we know
It
what?
could be an owner
sex
and a
the owner is?
businessman and a robber is the way we're looking at it.
But the owner doesn't have to be the businessman or the robber, right? The man. He could be the robber.
What if the owner was the man that appeared and was asking for the money?
What if the owner's a woman? Or identifies as.
You know, what's the
Businessman
question
shall
mark?
license or demand appeal.
Yeah.
That's true. Like, think about it that way, though. It could be the owner asking an employee for money. But why the cops got called, unless they're in cahoots, like we said.
So the owner could be a woman, the man could be your son, and the owner took the money, and then the son sped away.
So if the
Could be, right?
if the businessman was scared by the owner, thinking he was a robber, and he scooped up the contents and ran away, he could have called the police on his cell phone.
But why would the owner have had to ask the businessman to open the register if the owner opened the register?
Right, the owner there could be 8, 10 other
The
people.
owner opened the cash register.
Couldn't there? It doesn't say that, there could be 3 women that aren't mentioned.
Me. It could,
I don't disagree that it could be true, but I'm a question mark. I think like that's where I'm at. Like, I just think that there's a possibility that it's not true. That's why I'm a question mark.
and for ways for it not to be true.
Yep.
We're looking for ways to not accept what we really see.
I'm betting all of these are question mark, Darren.
We skip to the end?
No. They're all trick
I'm with-
questions.
But if you had more information, could you make a better decision?
If there was more sentences, we probably could.
Yes.
Yeah.
Only, that sounds like only if there was an exact sentence that absolutely said the robber's a man.
Okay.
That's why I'm a question mark, because there isn't one that says that.
And
The only,
with
the
the
only
lights
way,
being out, it could have been a woman that looked
the
like a
only way
man.
we'll accept that the robber's a man is if it absolutely says the robber's a man.
That road.
Regardless of how much information we have. Unless it says the robber's a man, we'll have questions about it.
So are we agreed that we're a question mark then, Darren? I think that's the question.
Not all of us, some of us. I'm still on the robber's a man, based on the information.
I thought you
here.
said if you'd had to have a sentence that said that.
Nope, still true. The robber's a man.
Maybe should we vote on it?
Is there I mean, is there a requirement that everyone says that the same thing here?
Well,
We're building consensus. Isn't that what we're doing?
Well, that's
yeah, and that's the another thing about,
That's a true statement.
right? So that's another thing about consensus, is that somebody might say that we've worked on building consensus, or sometimes when we vote and the vote is 7-0, somebody will say, oh, and it's unanimous, right? Well, is it to the same level for everybody, right? So somebody might say, yeah, I think it's true, but I can see where you're coming from with question mark. And I think if we had more information, we could probably prove it's true. So I would agree with you for question mark, but not to the same like level or conviction that say Michelle would. Michelle would be like, no, it's false or it's question mark, right? And so what we have, it's okay that the vote is 5-2, but we all have to agree that we're going to work towards building consensus around and more of an agreement around what the right answer is. Okay. It sounds like we're at kind of like 6-2. I'm trying to figure it out from here. Or could we agree that we're, if Katie could give us more information, I think we're pretty sure we could bring it to true, but I'm willing for us to study it some more. So that would mean question mark. Can we agree that we're going to put it back to committee and ask for more information?
I like that idea.
Yes.
I think if we have 3 board members that
think we
say
need-
it's true, yeah, we better dig a little deeper,
Please report.
get everybody a little bit closer.
Okay. All right. So, and I did show you this part here, but so as we go through here, what I want you to do is not correct it, but put a square around your team's answer there. So the first one was false. You want to put a square around that. And because we're going to gather more information, so we can build better consensus, we're going to put a square around number 2. And that would be question mark.
Katie, we had question mark for 1 and 2, I
Yes.
believe.
Correct. I think you might have misstated that, Katie, but I think I know what you were meaning. So question mark was the answer that the group agreed upon for question number 1.
Yes. Sorry.
Okay.
Yes.
Nope, that's
1
okay.
Mhm. Okay. All right. So let's move on to number 3. The man who appeared did not demand money.
I said false.
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 Okay.
After rereading it.
Did anybody have something other than false? Okay. So we're in agreement.
We are now. I had a question mark, but that's just because I wanted to answer question mark to all of them.
Okay.
Michelle, that's not the right
I
answer.
had a couple of clues, but
Waiting for somebody all day.
I had it as true.
I had a hard, well, there's reasoning behind that. To be honest with you, this whole story is only 4 sentences long. And in general, like if you look at how I operate at the board table, I like a lot of information. It's hard for me to answer true or false to any of these questions because it's a 4-sentence story. That's just me personally, how I approach making decisions.
But if it said a man appeared and demanded money, and the question is, the man appeared, did not demand money, isn't that opposite?
So that sentence,
I'm just,
yep.
that's what I'm.
No, it's a good question. It's a compound sentence, right? So a businessman had just turned off the lights in the store when a man appeared and demanded money. Did the businessman demand money or did the man who appeared demand money?
There's no comma, so you don't stop.
That way.
You keep saying the man appeared and demanded money.
I'm not good at English though, so.
Me neither, but I know that one.
So I think we all agree then
We're all going to agree. And what are we agreeing on? So
on false.
False.
okay. So put a square around false.
Square.
That's our group answer too,
Oh, okay.
right?
See,
So if you're circle inside the
Circle,
square,
square.
you got the answer.
Oh,
Same
okay.
as the group answer.
Okay, I see.
All right. So let's move on to
Gets the
number 4.
square.
Yeah, sounds like an old game
Old
show
game
or something.
Wait till you see the prizes at the end, right, Katie?
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Big bucks, right? All right, number 4. The man who opened the cash register was the owner.
I had true.
I had true, but
I just reread that.
True.
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 The owner opened the cash register. Do we know the owner's a man?
I had answered true, but now I'm a question.
Very good.
There is reason.
I answered true too, but now I just read it again and I went, well, wait a second, didn't we just have a conversation about,
Back to the beginning where
well, because we have a businessman and we also have an owner and we don't know they're the same people, right?
Yep.
I gotta change my,
So I think I'm going back to
Mark.
I had true,
because I don't know.
the question mark.
Yes, that's me too. After I reread it.
So you're saying if it said the person who opened the cash register was
Yes.
the owner, you would agree?
I would agree
Yes,
with
that's
that.
true.
Yes. That's why I'm not sure.
Katie, were you an English teacher? Some kind of advanced course in English?
You know what? I can always tell when there's an English teacher in the room, though,
We don't have one.
because then they go, then they really get into the commas and the but then the so.
So do we all agree on question mark or where are we at?
Question mark. That's where I'm at.
Question mark.
Maya, where are you at? Weren't you at? What did you have?
I was a true.
I was as well.
I was a
but I'm
true, but then
question
I
mark now
realized that-
based on our conversation from earlier.
Do you believe that the businessman and the owner are the same person? That's the question.
No, but I believe that the man that opened the register was the owner. I
Where do you
believe
see that a man opened a
I believe that
register?
the owner opened the cash register is what I'm saying. So
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
since it said the man that
That's what-
opened the
that's
cash
what
register,
screws it
I
up.
assume that they use that term.
Because what the question, because of what the question is, you're saying we're supposed to assume that that's right. Because it doesn't say the man up here.
It doesn't say the man. No, it doesn't. It just says the owner opened it. So
Cash register. So I would say you're right. It's true.
that's what I think. But
That's what I had. I changed it. I changed it back. So I got a lot of marks.
Let me hear your logic again. I'm not following it.
Well, he's saying because of the statement down
because
here.
the statement says
If there's more than one
Oh,
cash
the
register.
man who opened the cash register.
was the owner, and it says the owner opened the cash register. So
These are two
the
different.
fact is that they're asking.
Enter.
But if we're supposed to base our answers on this statement, why did these statements down here matter? Because these are just questions on that statement. That's the way I look at it.
The man who opened the cash.
They're trying to ask us questions and how we read this. So,
The owner.
and we were supposed to evaluate the 4 sentences. So that's the reason I don't see it that way. So Darren, are you back to a true?
True.
You're back to a true.
I'm there. I'm there.
So we got 2 trues and 6.
What you're saying,
What
question?
else is telling
We're
us?
saying the group is question mark still?
I think the group's still a question mark, right?
I'm a question.
I'm still a question mark.
I'm back to true because of Maya's statement that it says the man who opened it, they tell us something in that statement.
But do we know these statements, is that part of the assumption? Are all these statements true? Or are they?
No, we were supposed to evaluate the 4 sentences. So to me,
Are
the statements are there to trick us
Statements.
Open.
on how to answer the
Yeah, sure.
questions or the statement.
Katie, are they all true are the statements, correct? I'm not gonna say true.
If there's 2 cash registers. As it
There's A
says,
and
The 4
because it
sentences are
says,
correct.
open a cash register and then
4
How
sentences.
about the 11 questions?
No, they're not. That's the point.
We can ask these clarity questions.
That is a trick question that you just
Ooh.
asked me.
Oh,
Right.
right back at you.
I think you're in cahoots.
Question mark.
We are.
Yeah.
That's gotta be it.
At the end of this, do we get the rest of the story, or do we just have to
Tell us what the answers
do I
are.
have to go home and toss and turn about whether it was a man or not?
We rent this on Netflix.
Harvey ain't around anymore. We're not gonna get the rest of the story.
Robbery.
Okay, so the man.
What year did the robbery take place? How about that?
Is it based on a true story?
Oh, God.
The man who opened the cash register was the owner. Do we know that the owner is a man? based on the 4 sentences above.
No.
No.
So then that statement can't be true because we don't know. But she said, everything they're saying is based on the 4 statements above. We have to answer these questions. So these are statements that are the facts. They're trying to trick us down here. That's what I think.
We don't know that.
She just said
He won't
it was a
answer
trick
it.
question.
Don't know.
So remember, our 3
They're all
options
trick
is
questions.
true, false, and question mark, which means I need more information.
Right.
We're gonna table it.
We can't table more and
We need more information.
Question.
then it's a question.
Question mark.
More information.
Yep.
All right, question mark. Move on.
All right, so where are we at?
Question mark.
Question mark.
7-0 unanimous.
Yeah.
Well, we have
Just not all the way for everybody.
8 people sitting at the table. So
Oh,
what are we
8.
at?
Dale isn't.
8.
Yep, we
Yes.
got 8.
All right.
I apologize. Normally Dale's a non-voting member, but we'll
Yeah,
let him.
tonight he's
Yes.
is good.
New privileges tonight.
Elevated status tonight.
All right, number 5. The store owner scooped up the contents of the cash register and ran away.
Question mark.
Question mark.
Question mark.
Question mark.
Why?
Question.
It doesn't
It could
say,
be.
it doesn't say who stood it up.
When we don't know if he ran,
That's true. Sped away,
Yep.
necessarily run.
yeah, he could have walked and then got in his
Got in a
car and
car?
sped. I don't know.
Got in a
What
taxi,
does
maybe
sped?
an Uber.
Yeah,
What's the difference between sped and
Segway.
ran?
Well,
sped and ran.
ran is a physical thing with your leg and sped could be on anything, right?
Yeah,
Yep.
could be on a Segway or hoverboard, like back to the.
Okay. So where are we at now with number 5?
Question.
Question mark.
Mark.
Question.
Everybody agrees to that?
Yep.
Wow.
Does that usually happen on 5?
Well, eventually. Okay, number 6. Someone opened a cash register.
True.
True.
Sounds pretty definite.
Okay. That feels good, doesn't it?
Finally, not a trick question. You guys wouldn't put so many trick questions in.
All right, number 7. After the man who demanded the money scooped up the contents of the cash register, he ran away.
Totally question.
Question mark.
Question mark.
That we've examined that one.
So we're confident that's question mark. Anybody question that?
We don't here. Maybe you do.
No, that's great. If you come to an agreement there, I'll say what I often hear is, and you just talked about it. They would say, well, maybe that's false because he didn't run away. He sped away. I'll just throw that out there at you.
Yeah, that, I had false originally, but now we don't know if it was a man that took it because the owner could be a woman and we have all these red flags that we've identified.
And ran and sped could be the same depending on who you're talking to, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we have square around question mark. Number 8. While the cash register contained money, the story does not state how much.
I suppose they have to make that question mark too.
I was going to say I had true, but now when I read it, it says the contents of the cash register were scooped away. We don't know what was
Can't
actually in it.
necessarily assume that there was cash in the cash register, apparently.
Well, why would they
Apparently
call it the cash register?
Well, it seems silly, doesn't it?
Bitcoin register?
Well,
Well, we question whether it was
why
a
are they calling
robbery
it
and it's
contents and
called
not cash? So I had
What else?
true,
What else?
but I'm going to
is in
say
the cash
question mark.
register?
Receipts, credit card receipts.
Paper clips.
I would say it could have had nothing in it. It could have already been.
Empty for the day.
Keys to the safe.
Okay.
I think at the end of the day, the businessman puts the money in the safe, then turns out the lights to go home, so there's no money left in the cash register.
Oh, good call. The lights were already turned off, weren't they?
So I think it's question mark. We don't know if there's money.
Another.
We all question mark on this or not?
Yes, I
Get lots of questions, so it fits.
Question mark?
Everybody a question mark? Anybody disagree with question mark?
No.
Okay. Now, I think something interesting that has been said a few times now is I had say true, but now I just reread it. Ooh. Even sometimes on our own, as we reread something again, or after we've heard some other conversation, we understand perhaps I didn't look at it that way before, or I hadn't thought about it that way, right? All right, so number 9.
I have question mark.
question mark.
Anybody have anything different besides question mark? Okay.
I don't think so.
All right. So anybody want to share why they had question mark?
The robber demanded money from the businessman. We don't know if he's the owner.
We also don't know, we also weren't concerned or convinced that there is a robbery taking place either,
Well,
so.
we don't know that he just said.
I'm convinced.
Demand of money doesn't say.
He demanded it.
There's a robbery.
Maybe he demanded it from the police. Maybe they're in on it. In cahoots.
In cahoots.
Maybe that should be the new title of this exercise.
Yeah, then maybe Darren wouldn't think it was a robbery if it was
You gotta leave robbery in there.
a cahoot. He would be like, oh, it's not a robbery.
A lot more
Oh,
correct.
not a
answer.
robbery, they're just in cahoots.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. So number 9, we can put a square around question mark.
Yep.
Yes.
All right, so number 10. The story concerns a series of events in which only 3 persons are referred to: the owner of the store, a man who demanded money, and a member of the police force.
I have false.
I have false.
I have false.
Now, I think there's only 2 people now.
I had false.
I think there could be 4.
I think the businessman is the owner and the man who demanded money is the police officer.
But do you have enough information
I
to?
think.
It could be, you know.
Persons that are referred to, but that doesn't mean
There isn't.
There's really 4.
There's
There's
4
really
referred
4.
to in there.
They could be the same though,
But they
Darren,
could be
right?
the same people.
That's right.
That's what the issue is. So that's why I would have to say it's either false or
Man.
question mark, but I would say,
the man that appeared.
Could the business
Owner.
be the guy that demanded the money?
man that appeared, the businessman, the owner, and the police. That would be when I count
Yeah,
4.
it would be 4.
So, but I would say that it could still be 3 if we had more information. So I could go
Me
with,
too.
It could be one.
I could go with false or question mark in this situation. But I can't go true.
I put false originally. I hate to be wrong again. So much
I
tonight.
put false again too. But it really could be true. It could be 3 people.
Katie, how many do we got to get right before we win? We'll know
Surprises,
how
yeah.
hard we got to dig in on this one, me and Maya.
Because really, if you had only 3 people, and there was the owner who was the businessman, and a man who demanded money from that person, and a member of the police force, it would be 3, it'd be true.
It could be. So that's where I'm going to land back on question mark because I don't think we have enough information to answer this question. Because I think that even though there's 4 people listed, it could only be 2, it could be 4, it could be 3. So I don't think we have enough information.
Policeman could be the owner. Could also be the businessman.
How about this? Sarah, take this to our meet and confer committee and bring back more information.
See what they think about it.
Yeah. It looked like false, it felt like false, but now I think I gotta go question mark.
I'm still stuck at false, simply because they never use the word businessman in there, so.
But could it be? That's the thing, my question
But
is,
the owner and the businessman
we
could
don't
be the same
know,
person.
we don't know that one of those people aren't the same people. So that's where I land on, could it be true?
So my thought process behind it was, the sentence says it only referred to 3 people. And it listed the owner, the man, the member. So regardless of whether 1 is 2 or 2 is 1,
You're just saying because they didn't say,
because it's
you didn't say
saying,
the 4 things, that's why you don't agree with? I get
because
what
it's
you're
saying
saying.
only 3, and the businessman's never listed in that list. That's a false sentence in my head.
Unless the businessman was one of the other 3.
Yeah, that's what I'm.
Then it would still be a true
But
sentence.
even if that was the case, the businessman is mentioned.
But if
So-
it's the same, like if I said the board chair and Michelle Nessman, I referred to the same person,
one
but I
person.
referred to you separately.
With 2 different
right?
titles.
So I could say, the board chair brought the meeting to order. Michelle Nessman did this. I've referred to 2 separate people.
But one
But
person.
really, it's you. It's the same person, right? Just a question.
So what if we walk through it? It says the owner, okay, the owner opened the cash register, true. The man who demanded money, okay, it says a man demanded money, true. A member of the police force,
Okay, but it says,
that's false. We don't talk about a member of the police.
yeah, they do. A member of the police force was promptly notified. Just saying that the story concerns a series of events in which only 3 persons are referred to.
So the word only
Yeah, that's what gets,
is strong in that sentence. And I gravitate towards false because it's not only those 3 people that are mentioned, even if they're 1 or 3 or 4 people.
but it could be true.
But what we're asking is for you is if we were to find out that the businessman and the owner were the same person, would that sentence be true to you then?
Does it only refer to 3 people?
Yeah, it could be true. Right?
You get what I'm saying? If you were presented with facts that said the owner and the businessman are the same person, would you then answer that question differently?
No, it would have to be the owner, would have to be.
Well, I'm just
the same
saying,
as
so
the
what,
man,
if we were to get facts that
or the, you know, the.
there's two of these people are the same, so this sentence would read that it would read the same, but we find out that the businessman, so the
Yeah, is the
businessman and the owner are
yeah.
the same person.
And it
If we
would
were to
be
find that out, would it then, you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's why I'm saying for me,
As long as he wasn't
information.
also a police officer.
Huh?
As long as he wasn't also a police officer.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So like I said, I think we need more information.
Right.
I think it's either false or we need more
If the police officer
information.
demanded the money, then that's wrong again, because now there's only really 2 people.
Right.
Involved, not 3.
Yeah.
That's a question mark. I do have one more information.
Yeah,
The story could be referring to 4 different people.
going back to our question mark again.
All right, so where are we at?
Could be one man yelling at himself.
Yeah, you could have Tourette's.
Are we all in agreement on question mark, or are we still have people that are, are you still?
Nope, I can get on board with getting more information.
One guy yelling at himself and he's a police officer. That's it.
So where are we at?
Question mark,
We're all at question.
Okay.
is that where most groups get to?
You want to be like most.
No, we're in
Is
the
that what you're saying?
50th percentile or 30th or 70th.
Number 11, someone demanded money. A cash register was opened. Its contents were scooped up and a man dashed out of the store.
Are we gonna, is the word sped still important in our story? Because now
Because we don't know the.
I said false.
I said false.
No one ever dashed out of the store in our store.
It doesn't say anyone dashed out of the store. That's why I said false.
They sped away.
They sped away. Doesn't say anything about how they left the store.
how did he demand money if he wasn't in the store?
Could have been outside,
Been yelling at him from a distance. Social distance.
the door of the store.
God, I don't go to school.
Would
Oh,
that
you
be worth calling?
He could have been outside, called in and said, I demand the money, and I'm actually
Well,
outside
they
the
could have
store.
walked, he could have walked casually out of the store and then jumped in a car and sped away.
If our answer is based
He
off of,
ran out of the store, dashed out.
It just says a man appeared. It never even said that the man was in the.
True, it never since the man went into the store, so.
so if our answer is based off of could of,
But it could be,
get a question mark.
I mean, it could be the owner that ran away after the guy took the money from him. Maybe that's the one that sped off. He
Yeah.
doesn't say who sped away, it just says a man did.
Could have been the businessman.
I still believe that the robber's a man, though.
And I don't know.
We don't know that there's a robbery.
It could be true.
I'm still not sure if there was a robbery at all.
I'm certain there was a robbery.
I'm going off.
With number 11. Number 11. Where are we at?
I've moved from true to false to question mark, I think.
Saying false.
Are you going to stick with false?
Saying
Oh,
false.
false.
I know when me and Terry used to go to school, we're older than the rest. It was true or false only. I don't know when you
You didn't get no question marks.
mark stuff.
Okay, someone demanded
Any confusion?
a cash register was opened, its contents were scooped up, and a man dashed out of the store.
I'm with false.
Yes, okay, I'm gonna go false because it doesn't say that someone dashed out of this, it said the man sped away. So I can get on board with false.
That doesn't make it false, though. That makes it questionable in my mind.
Why?
Dashed and sped the same thing, don't know.
But it's saying dashed out of the store, this said sped away.
Doesn't say
It
anything.
doesn't say
about how
anything
he
about
left.
dashing out of the store.
Could he have dashed out of the store and then sped away?
But it doesn't say anything about that, and we're supposed to base our decisions on the four statements.
Gotta go off.
Or need to have more information.
We're gonna run out
You
of
could say
time
that.
with these
Yeah,
guys.
you could say that. I still think it's false.
Oh, I see how 3 hours flies by.
Yeah.
False.
We're not even that far into
3
it.
hours and we didn't even get through 11 questions.
It's 7:30. We're not even close to half.
Gotta have 2-sentence stories.
3 hours goes by and we only made a decision on 4 items. The rest we,
Like a normal
Idea.
meeting.
So where are we at then?
Number 11 is the last one. Where are we at?
Come on, guys, where are we at?
Question mark.
I think it's false.
I'm false.
False.
I'm with Maya.
False, according to those statements. It's false.
So we got 6 falses and 2 question marks? Is that where we're at? Is that where you're at, Michelle?
I'm still at a question mark.
I think, yeah, because sometimes if we don't make a decision once in a while, we're gonna have to start meeting every single night.
Are you kidding? We've already been here a lot.
Tabled when? Till tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. We already meet every week, so.
It's going, yep, pretty much.
I'm not saying don't make a decision
No, I'm
ever.
using that as a conversational piece too, you know. Yeah, go
I just want 2 more sentences.
I want,
And then I'll make my
I want 8
decision.
more sentences on a whole paragraph.
Can we make a decision?
I could give you 2 more sentences, but you won't believe
According
it.
to the story, someone demanded money. That's true. Cash register was open. That's true.
It won't matter.
Its contents were scooped up. That's true.
True.
And dashed out of the store. False.
That's false. Yeah.
According to the story, we don't even know the man.
I'll get on board. I'll get on board with the false.
Contents of the cash register were scooped up and the man sped away. So like really, when you think this back through, the man that appeared maybe didn't even come in the store.
But could he have come in the store, dashed out of the store and sped away, and we just don't know?
No.
It's not,
We only got the 4 sentences to work.
Right, we only have the 4 sentences, so we either have to agree that we need more information or we
We have.
false. That's where we're at.
that's all the information we have right now.
Oh, can we get more?
But the whole,
The whole point of this is
not that we can't get more. She's not going to make up.
going to give us more tonight.
I could take it to committee.
She's an old English teacher. She's being tough. Never liked English. Commas, periods, question marks.
Hey, guys, this is the last one. What are we going to do?
False.
I'm saying based on the 4 sentences, that is a false statement.
And that's how I'm reading it as well.
Can the rest of you get there, Michelle, or no? Can't?
I could get my pinky toe there.
So you can get there, but no, just barely, is that what you're saying?
For the
Could you
sake,
get yourself to this point? Could you get yourself to the point that a man sped away and a man dashed out of the store are 2 different statements?
I can. My thought process is if we marked, we need more information on questions like number 4, where we weren't sure that it's a man. Why wouldn't we mark question mark on number 11 where we're not sure if dashing out of the store occurred? Because just because it doesn't state it in the 4 sentences above, if that's our logic, then I think we go back through the rest of the questions and maybe change some of those answers.
Tell us how it could be true then. If it's question mark, it could be true.
It doesn't tell me how he exited the store. He could have pranced, he could have danced, he could have singed his way out of the store.
What if it was a woman?
Dashed.
But it also could have been a woman. So for me,
That would be false.
if we knew that it was a woman, it could be. If we had more information, it told us it was a woman.
It's just hard to make it true, I think.
Oh, I'm not on the true train.
But you have to be able to make it true or false to get question mark. Isn't that the rules or not?
I have to say that one more time.
No, I don't think so.
You wouldn't have to?
No.
Question mark is just that you need more.
I don't think, but like when you're talking about referring back to number 4, the man who opened the cash register was the owner. I think our question mark there was, we didn't know if the owner and the businessman were the same person. It wasn't.
We didn't know if
Wasn't
it
it?
was a man.
But it could be true.
We questioned if the owner was a man.
Oh, because it
never
just
told us
says
if the
owner.
was a
Okay,
man.
I was just
So-
going back to see what that one
So
was.
there, the actual person is in question.
Right,
Is the person a man or a woman? We
Right.
don't know that through the story.
right.
Okay, so
'Cause they don't
that's a
tell us,
question mark
right.
because we don't have that information. But we have the information that a man sped away and a man dashed out of the store, and those are two different elements.
Right, because one is
Based on
going
those
out of the store.
sentences, it never says anywhere that a man dashed out of the store.
Nope, it also doesn't tell us that the owner's a man. If we use that same logic,
Where do you see that?
which is
And that's why we said,
That's why we said question mark.
right. That's why I'm stuck on, why do we have a question mark about not knowing if the owner's a man, but we don't have a question mark about him dashing out?
Well, it says the man sped away. It doesn't say,
Because-
we don't know he was in the building.
Exactly.
we know that the owner did that act. We just don't know if.
If it was a man or a woman.
We don't even know if he was in a store.
We don't even know if this guy was in the store. That's
Right.
true.
So if he wasn't in a store, then it's false.
Is it gonna make any difference one way or another?
It does if you think of the logic of falsely accusing someone of something.
We're not accusing anybody of anybody. They're just asking what you think. But it's not costing us any money. It
But I would rather,
doesn't make any difference, and there's other things to do. I guess
A man dashed out of the store.
You could get your pinky toe there and support this team you're on. So. Be very accommodating of you.
So where are we at?
9-1.
yep, and I'm the board chair, so I will own majority consensus.
doesn't affect us in any way, shape, or form. It just happens to be on the paper.
Right, but I'm also going through this exercise thinking about what happens on a regular basis with our board, and I don't think there's anything wrong with saying, do we know for certain? No, so why would we say we know for certain that it's false? Because that, quite honestly, like if we bring it back to the conversations that we have at the board table where we've had the most frustration, I'm going to use the word frustration because I think we've seen that. It's that there are some people that aren't quite there. They feel like they need more information, and other people that feel like I am confident that I could vote today. So my question is it wrong when we have situations where we don't know for sure? Do we need to make decisions? Yes. Do we want to drag our feet all the time? No. That's ineffective board. But part of the way I'm answering these questions is not just because I'm looking at this as just a story for tonight. I'm looking at it as holistically our board dynamic. I don't know if that.
I can agree with that.
I'm just looking at it as number 11, and how do we get?
Then you have to ask for the exact fact.
Okay.
Oh,
I think you make great points there. Depending on how you look at it is the level of importance of this specific decision you're making, number 11.
and if we are simply looking at number 11 as just the sentence that it is and the story that we have here, yes, I can support false.
Got a girl.
On board, Katie.
So,
Is that all? Is that all 8?
Yes,
Yes.
that would be.
So all 8 is saying what?
False.
False.
Okay.
probably the only one we got wrong.
I know. I only got one wrong. Did we win?
We win.
Well, remember what we said earlier. It's not about win or lose, right?
Right.
But I wrote some.
Trying to make us feel better about this, or
I thought you said there were prizes involved.
where's the prizes? We like prizes.
Once we're done, we'll give you a break. How's that?
Under $5 prizes.
Yes.
Okay, so let's think about this process, right? About building consensus. I think you made some good points at the end, right? What's the level of importance of this, of number 11, or the overall exercise, right? And depending on how you looked at it, some felt it wasn't that important. It's just sheet of paper. That's just Katie, and so what, right? Where others looked at it as we're trying to use this as a model as to how we work together, right? And all are true. But it's just how different people have a different level of importance, passion, investment in some of our different decisions that we make. Okay. It was also interesting, okay, this is the last one. Can we just get through this last one, right? We've been doing this, and now we've been here an hour and a half, and, some of us need to go use the restroom, so let's do this one, okay? And then some of you is saying, okay, let's narrow it down to the specifics, and you wanted to break it down, right? Break it down, okay? Words are important. Okay, he sped away, he ran away, he pranced into the, I think I heard that, right?
That was you.
Yeah. Some said maybe he used a segue, and then it was like, oh, well, was he even in the store? Because maybe he came up through the drive-through, right? I don't know. Okay. What's the level of value of what we're talking about? Was any part of this frustrating? There's no wrong answer to that question.
Be honest, yeah.
Yeah.
Not really, because it's an exercise. I mean,
Frustrating, just.
I thought I heard some frustration, though. Come on, this is the last one.
Dating us? I have consensus on no.
Okay. Was it easy? Granted, this exercise, specifically how you answered, had no specific value, right? But was it easy?
No.
Mm-mm. And even number 11, like, we started off and we were laughing and joking back and forth and who's in cahoots, and then it was like, all right, this is the last one. Let's break it down. We got serious, right? Let's answer this, right? And so you're going to go through that as well, and recognizing that when we're having conversations, when we're making decisions, and it's important to have the fun part of it, right? Or the lighter side of it, if you will, because that is when we do that, is when we work on building some of those, the trust as well, how we're, joking with each other. But you also did it respectfully, right? We said cahoots, but we knew what we meant by that, right? And that, that's a term that we use, but we can do it respectfully. Nobody said, you don't know what you're talking about, right? Of course, the owner is a man and the businessman scooped up the of course a cash register only has cash, right? But we all thought, oh no, what else could it have? Cash register receipts, right? Okay. Credit card receipts could have my Kohl's cash in there, which isn't the same thing, but is of great value, right? So sometimes we hear these things as well, like in the interest of time, right? Because this decision isn't important, right? Or you might have somebody say, well, I could have said, as the facilitator, you know, we're past 7:30 here. I could have said, you know, in the interest of time, I'm going to impose the will of Katie, just so we can move on here, right? But then that's frustrating for you because you're like, hey, we worked hard at this, right? We need to get this last one done, right? So looking at when you read it individually and answered with the circles, compared to when we brought you together as a relatively small group, right? And now you have squares. Okay, and is there a difference? Anybody ended up changing their answers? Okay, a few of you, right? Okay, so thinking about that as well. Now, when we do this with like a group of 30 people, what we do is we break you into small groups of 5 or 6, right? So first you do the circles for you individually, then you go into your group of like 6 people and you put squares around things. Then we bring you back as a big group. So picture that, that's your board and the community, right? And now we have to work on bringing the community along and talking about and giving them the information and help build consensus there as well. And that's important. We don't have that big group with us today, so we've done the first couple steps of it. But it's not easy. It's hard work. Some people can dip their big toe into, you know, being in agreement, and other people are like, no, this is what it says, right? So you have different levels of commitment around a specific answer, and all of those are okay. Sometimes we, as a board member, you know, don't feel as passionate about something as somebody else, and you can say, all right, you know, I'm going to go with Darren because, you know, I hear what he's saying, and he's really passionate about it, and he really seems to really, you know, have a real need for this to happen, you know. So it's okay to have those types of conversations as well. All right. Any thoughts around this for any of you? I have to say that the number 3 and number 6, where it was false and true, and where what I've seen, I would say 98% of the time, sometimes even the big group can talk each other into something completely different than what we would traditionally see as the right answer. Okay. Number 11 is oftentimes, and it can be frustrating because it's the last one and we've had these other answers that we've worked on ahead of time, and it can take us the longest. Usually 10 and 11 can take us the longest, which it did. So think about when you first went through it, you know, you took what, 3-4 minutes to answer, right? How much time did it take you as a group?
Much longer.
Yeah, it was about 50 minutes. It was about 50 minutes. So you have to know, I'm going to look it over. And so that's something to think about when we're talking with our community. Okay, I've read it over, board meetings in 2 days, but in the meantime, I get stopped and somebody says, hey, what are you going to do about that? You know, I hear that's coming up at your board meeting on Monday night, right? Keep in mind, you only have your perspective that you've read, and you've read through it that one time. But then even as we were doing this, we had people say, you know, I read it again, and now that I read it again, I see it this way. So even on their own, they came up with a separate decision. So keeping all of those things in mind, but you did it all respectfully as well. And to me, it sounds like you're a group that really trusts one another. You trust each other's perspectives, and you're willing to listen and hear. And so that's very important. Very important. So I really,
Katie, I would add, nobody was shy about saying anything. And I think that's important too, that everyone's voice, and that's a good thing. I mean, everyone's voice needs to be heard at the table.
right. Right. And it's also, okay, you know, sometimes we are a little bit more shy when it comes to some of those topics that we're not as familiar with. But it's important as the chair, but also as the rest of the board to, you know, kind of pull that out of the others, right? Maybe saying, you know, so Kayla, maybe you haven't been on as long, but, you know, we want to hear your perspective as well, right? But you might also be feeling like, you know, I haven't been around for these conversations before, so I'm really trying to hear what everybody has to say too. So, all right. Well, we are gonna reward you with a break.
Okay.
Okay. So let's see. How long do you want to do, Gail?
Is the group okay? Do you want to do a 5-minute break and come back, or would you like a little bit longer?
5 is okay.
About 7:47 New Ulm time. We'll see you back.
Okay.
7, yes, okay.
Central time?
Yeah, is that Central Time?
Same.
Yep, same thing down south, yep. Daylight savings time.
Thanks, sir. I'm gonna go run around our track one time and get back.
Remember, you only have 5 minutes.
I was real disgusted.
How does he get those quotes? They're ridiculous.
Well, I was for a new school in Kensington, and there's land available to do so. I never said that.
I think Kelly,
I sent a letter to him.
did you? Kelly messaged him too, because he keeps quoting Kelly as saying, don't do this because of finances.
Yeah.
Which is not what he's saying. He's saying, you don't need to do this because of finances, because you have a ton of money. I couldn't even finish reading it because I read a few of the quotes, and I'm like, that's not even what happened.
Yes, I get the paper on Tuesday,
Yeah.
and I read that. I said, great guidance. I was so dang bad. So I wrote a letter to the editor today.
Oh, good,
And sent it today.
good, perfect. I think we should type up your statement and put that in too, because it was really good. Yeah, Kelly was thinking he was gonna write a letter too about that CA Ray, when he's here even taking minutes and stuff, what he puts in the paper is not even how it's going. It's very frustrating.
Nothing. I got papers written. No. Hoagie in his thing today said that no decision has been made for vote this fall. Wasn't that one meeting? That vote, they voted to proceed to this fall for another vote.
They voted, well,
What was that?
back in December, they voted to have it as a mail-in ballot if there was gonna be an election, because they were like, we don't know if there's gonna be one. So
Yeah.
that was in December, and then in January, Hoagie gave a recommendation from one site. And then they voted that night to proceed with forming a committee.
Yeah.
But like I don't know where these decisions are being made, because we're not seeing something, and Gary just mentioned, we're meeting once a week.
Yep.
I don't know.
Interesting.
What's that?
That's interesting.
I know, I got it recorded, so. I'm very disappointed that they're not recording this and putting it.
Is it?
No, because
I thought that's what.
I don't know what, maybe that thing is running? I don't know.
That's not right. I thought.
It's not on Facebook, it's not going
Because
live.
I know,
He was in there messing around.
what's his name says, give me 5 seconds so I can get this going, so
It must have been the video conference or to work with these
they
ladies.
had that already set in.
Oh, I'm so sad I got here late.
When I first came.
Yeah. could have swore it was 8:30. Don't check your messages.
My phone's off because it kept, I think, well, West Central doesn't have school, so I think, but both Alec and Minnewaska do, I think. So my phone keeps going off for substitute teaching and I'm like, I will deal with you later.
Alec is going to spec to distance.
Are they really? Did their numbers spike up?
Yes.
Huh.
7 through 12.
Oh, I'm so glad our kids aren't.
EF did, didn't they?
I don't know.
They went back to distance.
It went back last week or.
Right after their boys lost in the basketball tournament. Go.
Oh, timing, huh?
Uh-huh, convenient.
Yeah, numbers are starting to rise again.
Oh, man, that's gonna be so hard for parents with it getting nice outside.
Oh. Why are they going?
That was my struggle with the boys last year. It was like they wanted to be fishing. They did not want to be reading. Like,
Oh, go read on the dock.
yeah. Look at that, right on the money.
All right.
Gail and Katie, you have all 8 of us back.
Great.
Wow, perfect. Boy, another prize. They just won another prize, Katie.
So just to clarify, this is being recorded this evening, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Just want to clarify that.
Mhm.
All right. Well, welcome back, everybody. So we're talking about building consensus. Some things that consensus is not. It's not based on power. So it's not that because one person's been on the board longer than somebody else that their vote is stronger or means more. Keep in mind, you're one of 7. Right? It's not about withholding information. So we want to make sure everybody has all of the information so we can all make the best decision that we can. All right. And it shouldn't be competitive, as we talked about earlier. I wouldn't say just because somebody voted against something that I was passionate about does not mean I turn around and vote against what they're passionate about just because, right? I mean, it really is about gathering the best information that everybody can have to use to make a decision. Okay, so not about win, lose, the well, where are we at, thumbs up, thumbs down kind of thing, and it's not about being argumentative. You weren't argumentative when it came to our exercise that we did. You really kept, there was a firm, let's go over the details kind of thing, but that's certainly reasonable. And I think it's also interesting to see that at different times, different people at the board stepped up and were trying to move the group towards an answer. Okay, so that's important to draw off the skills of everybody that's at the board table. Okay, so I think we found it is hard work because imagine you took just a few minutes to do it individually. You took about 45 minutes to do it as a group of 8. And then if we were to bring all the other people in, let's throw another 20 people in there, it would be hard work, even harder work, and take us even longer, right? Any questions or thoughts around that exercise?
Katie, I'm curious for the group to ask, how do you think that exercise will be able to help you as you're making decisions?
I guess I think our board works almost exactly like that on at almost every meeting.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else want to comment? Agree, disagree, true, false, question mark?
I thought we were done with that part.
Yeah, we are.
There's no wrong answer.
Right.
Yeah, I would agree.
Good. And Gail and I have visited with many many school boards.
Mhm.
And we can't always say that.
That's
Right?
very true, right.
Right. So I commend you in that, and I encourage you to work together to work on coming together to build the consensus in remembering that, some people feel passionate about one or the other, and others could maybe can see both sides, right? Or can, dip their toe in, just to kind of give Michelle a little nudge there.
Yep. Move the pinky toe a little. Yep.
Just teasing her. Okay. So, and with that comes different board dynamics, certainly. And so, keeping in mind, we're all different. We all bring different experiences, trainings, priorities, and filters to the board table. And those can be everything from our personal experience, what we're hearing in the community, that other hat, that I wear every day. But in all of that, and with all of that being said, what can you control? Who can you control?
Self.
What was that?
Yourself.
Yourself. Right. Now we can learn to understand others and work with them and give them the type of information they need in order to make the best decision they can. Okay. But so thinking about what do you bring to the board table? And we talk about that not only as a team, as a group, but also individually. So when we are talking about making decisions about the buildings, right? What is it I'm bringing to the board table to make that decision? Is it what I'm hearing from the community? Is it what where I went to school? Is it what I'm hearing from my kids? Is it what I'm hearing from teachers? Is it the information that staff has given me? All of that, right? And we all hear from different people when we're out in the community as well. Okay, so thinking about what you're bringing to the board table and making sure we all can hear and understand as much as possible. Okay, so the next piece, Dale, there's one more handout there. That's the one that says navigating board dynamics. See that? You can just hand that out. That would be great. So when we're talking about our board dynamics, our group dynamics, we all have very different leadership styles, right? In that because of all those other things I talked about a moment ago, you bring that all in, and where there's basically four different styles, even within those styles, how we all act can be different as well. So there's basically four different styles, and you see those on the page here: promoter, controller, supporter, analyzer. Some of you have maybe done Myers-Briggs, some of those kinds of things, and those are great in more detail, in that you're going to go in and you're going to fill things out, and it's going to go through a processor and kick it back out again. We don't have the time for that this evening. But what I'm going to do is kind of explain these four different leadership styles. And you first you want to think about where you are at, right, in that leadership style. But then also we can maybe think about the rest of the board, so that understands, why somebody needs their information the way they do. Might be a little bit differently. So certainly in the interest of time, I'm not going to go through them in great detail, but I'm going to explain them through the sheet that you just had passed out to you. Okay, but I want you to think about you first. Okay, so if we think about where our analyzer is at, right? And by the way, we need all four of these different styles, and sometimes we have to adapt to provide that style within our team. Okay, but the analyzer, they are going to make decisions that are very deliberate. They base it on the facts, right? And it's very orderly, and they have a system to it. They tend to be quiet because they're more focused on the specifics, the data. They're problem solvers and persistent, right? And they're going to be the ones that say, okay, now let's look at this. And they're going to say A, B, C, D, right? Now it says negative traits, or sometimes, any too much of anything can be a positive or a negative as well. So they can be considered more serious or orderly, right? Pressure can build quickly if they're cornered and they don't have the information they need to make a decision. Okay. Tend to take more time, right? And that can be frustrating to somebody else that wants a decision done more quickly. And they may receive all the data and then, oh, I received some more data, so now I've changed my mind. And okay, where others might say, okay, we've made a decision, let's just move on. Okay. But that's your analyzer. Then next, you'll see in the lower left-hand corner is the controller. They make decisions rapidly. Tends to look like they make it easily. They can be strong-willed, but they perform well and to the capacity. They may even be a bit competitive, which can be good and can be bad, right? And these are the kind of people that make those lists, right? They're making the lists and they're checking things off. They're wanting to be orderly. They may appear as if they're running over others because they are trying to get things done. Okay. They want to include others, certainly, but only if they're gonna, work, right? Will become stressed when others tell them what and how to get the task done because they've already been studying it. Okay. They like structure. Okay. All right. So that's where we have analyzer and controller. The next one we're going to look at is the promoter, and that's in your upper left-hand corner. Now, the promoter, they make decisions quickly, and they are out there, they're going to sell it, right? So there's going to be the others going to create it and come up with the facts to determine it, where the promoter is going to sell it. They're going to be out front. You see this guy here, he's working in the garden, or he's working on the topic, right? But he's got his tie on because he's going to get out there and sell it. But I can also roll up my sleeves and get in there and make it happen, right? They're persistent when they're passionate about something. They can be impatient and almost appear as if they have off-task behavior because you're not moving fast enough for them, right? And so we're working on this, but other people are still thinking about things. So now I'm going to go work on this. Let me know when you get there, right? Okay, so that's our promoter. The next one is the upper right-hand corner, and that is our supporter. They like to listen to all sides, make decisions, and are agreeable to others, tend to be non-competitive, and they're going to be very much, when somebody walks in the room and is kind of looking around, they're going to be the one who's like, oh, who are you looking for? Oh, okay, and they're going to, help give direction. Okay. May appear to be more sensitive. Okay. They don't want to make people feel bad. Okay, so they might withhold the unpleasant information, where others might say, you need to hear this, you need to know this. Okay. They appreciate when they're reassured. They tend to make decisions slower because they want to hear all the different perspectives, even if that means there's 20, right? They want to hear them all. They want everybody to be heard before a decision is made. Okay. So I need you to think about where you are in these four, keeping in mind they're all important. Some might say, well, I'm kind of this and I'm kind of that, but really think about your leadership role as a school board member. Where are you at? And people can kind of tend to, they can change up a little bit because they've had some experience. And now they understand maybe they need to pull back, or maybe they understand I shouldn't be down into that data, into the details, and they're willing to let some of that go, right? So think about where you're at. Okay. And it's okay if you don't, but does anybody want to share where they feel they're at? Okay.
Where was I before, Gary?
Yeah, we did the Enneagram test on our retreat. You guys
Okay.
familiar with that one?
The Enneagram?
Enneagram.
Okay, I have to look that
I'm
one
not
up.
familiar with that. No.
You have to look it up.
Okay.
Darren was it? Was you were too? Which is kind of an analyzer.
Logged in.
Yeah.
Okay, so you kind of have a feel for where each other's at. That's great. All right. So if we look at this, and I'm going to just do this here, showing this to you. So just like it is on your page, it's laid out up on the screen here, and you'll see the promoter and the controller. So on your left side, tend to be rapid decision makers, right? Give me the information, I'm going to go promote it. Give me the information, I'm going to start figuring out who we need to do it and how and when and a timeline, right? Where when we have on the right side, those that tend to be more of a supporter or an analyzer, they are going to take more time to make their decision. They want the data to support it. They want to hear different perspectives, right? And we're not saying one side is right or wrong by any means, because you need both sides, right? You can see how a promoter would need the data, even though that's not their thing, they want the big picture. They need the data to be able to support it, right? And the controller wants to make sure that everybody's being heard, you know, like the supporter does, but they're going to start saying, okay, I hear you, Gail, and where is it that you can help? Where can we put you in to start promoting this and getting it out there? And they're going to start organizing. Okay. The thing is if there's going to be any conflict, it tends to be with those opposite corners. Okay. So that's something to think about. So as a controller, right, that person needs to think about, okay, I'm making lists, I'm making decisions, we've got a timeline, we're going to keep it moving. Where the supporter would say, slow down, I don't think we've heard from everybody yet, right? We need to hear more perspectives. Okay. So that is where you could see conflict. So I want you to keep that in mind. So now, why is this important? Okay. So we already said who we can change or who we can control is ourselves. And so I'm not going to change somebody else, but I can better understand them, right? And say, oh, okay, I get it. You need more information. You need more data, right? But I'm also confident that when you make a decision, if you're an analyzer, you've got the everything you need to back that up. Okay, you learn to know that and learn that about your group and your team and how to communicate with them, right? And the analyzer might say, whoa, promoter, you're moving too fast for me, but let's talk about this and help me understand like where you're going with it, right? So if you're going to promote it, how about you promote this much, because we know this to be true, but then let's keep on work on figuring this out. Okay. So why would this make a difference for the superintendent or the board chair to try and work through and understand the dynamics, the style and the role of the board? Anybody have any thoughts around that? Why would this make a difference to them?
To understand their decision-making process.
Mm-hmm. Right? And so if I understand their decision-making process, then what can I do to help them make that decision?
Understand what it is they're going to need to make the decision. More
Absolutely.
information or whatever it is.
right? So what do they need to be able to make a decision? Not what do they need in order to make a decision that I want them to make, right? But what do they need in order to make a good informed decision? So what's a promoter going to need to make a decision? They want the what? The big picture, right? Give me the big picture. Tell me what it's going to look like. And I'm going to go work out there, work on selling it, right? What does a controller need in order to make a decision? What do they like? They want a plan, right? Yeah. They want a timeline. They want a checklist, or they want to see things getting done, right? Getting marked off the checklist. Okay. What is an analyzer going to need to make a decision or to be able to support something?
Data.
Yep, the data that supports it. Right? But they want to see all the data. Don't just show me data that's going to support it. Show me all of it. So then I can make an informed decision, and then I can, buy in, certainly.
So they'd want more than 4 sentences in the robbery, right, Katie? They'd want a couple of paragraphs or pages. Okay.
They might want 8.
So then when we talk about a supporter, what does a supporter need to make a decision?
To know that others support it.
I'm sorry, I could not hear that.
To know that others support it or are going to be agreeable to it.
Yes, and they want to hear all the perspectives, right? They want to hear all of the perspectives. Okay. Now keep in mind, like the superintendent, the board chair, when we're preparing a board packet, if we have 4 analyzers on our board, now and think about, I don't know if you get your packets in paper or digitally, but if it's paper, what's that packet going to look like? It's going to be thick, right? Because we want the data to support things. If we have, 4 promoters on our board, what's that packet going to look like?
An executive summary.
More of a summary, the bigger picture, absolutely. And not that they don't think like the data is important, but they're also thinking, that's your thing, right? You've got the data. I know, I'm trusting you, so now I'm going to go sell it, right? I'm going to promote it. And as your board changes, so does how they provide information to you as well. How do you like it? How do you like to get it? Do you want it in email form so you can keep track of it? Do you want it as a presentation at a board meeting? Okay. All right. Any thoughts around this?
I do, and maybe you're getting to this. So if you want to tell me just to hold that thought, that's perfectly fine too. I think this group, as Dale started tonight, talked about it being a very high-performing board, and I 100% agree. We get to one subject, and it's building bonds, and that high-performing board runs into disagreement. So my question is, I think there is an understanding that we're all built differently at this table, but I still think that and even with all the great information presented tonight, I'm still looking at it going, okay, my supporters are the ones that are out there saying, if student achievement is the thing that's in the middle of the circle, and I believe that having 3 schools, because that's the smallest class sizes we'll ever have, leads to better student achievement, that's what I believe. And then I've got my analyzers that are looking at it, and they say, when I look at the data, the facts, the statistics, and the way that financials go for school districts, this makes sense to me. And I look at the efficiencies of having one location, this makes sense to me. And we're back to a situation where I see both sides of that fence. I still don't know that with all the exercises we've done tonight, that I myself have an understanding of when it comes to the building bond discussion and knowing that we have these 4 different people, how do we get beyond I'm going to call it a stalemate, being very stuck with knowing that there's multiple perspectives and not knowing where to go.
Well, I think you need to, so now that you're understanding those multiple perspectives. What do you need, and individually, what do you need to make a decision? And we can say, well, some of you have already made a decision, right, by voting one way or another. But are you willing to look at more information, which can feel like a lot, right? But also, what are we basing our decisions on, right? What are we basing our decisions on? Are we basing it on the vision of what we've set in place for our district? What does our strategic plan say that we're going to do? Those are things that you've set in place, or perhaps maybe need to review and really say, what is it that we see 3 years out? What does a graduate of our school district look like? So taking it from another perspective to have that discussion of what you want things to look like and how are we going to get there? Because if you keep going down the same road with the same information, you're going to come back, to the same place, right? But how do we pull back and look at it a little bit differently and discuss it a little bit differently to see if we can get to a different place? You had a vote in November, right? We received feedback. Do we have to then, what do we do with that? Yeah.
Well, to spin off on what Katie was saying too, so what are your goals? Do you have goals set up that you can tie back to making the decision about the building bond?
So our strategic plan would have just expired in December, right, Gary? The one that you have there?
It's, was written December of 17.
They expire, do they?
Well, you typically either 3 or 5 year plans, I think, the ones that we've done. 19, 20, 21.
So you
That
do
would
another
be-
one, I'm assuming?
I think in
Right.
that one, didn't we do 3 years? Because it was work that had begun, work that needed to be started, and work that was completed. Like there was a chart that tied into action items. If it was 3 years, then it would be expired. If it was 5 years, then we have one that we haven't looked at in a while that's now has 2 years in it and we haven't revisited it.
We haven't really touched that since Barry was here.
I look at it every board meeting.
No, we have that, but the big, whatever, the other pages that go with it, what you're talking about, we haven't really touched on that. We've had that at our table, but.
And your strategic plan doesn't necessarily expire as much as maybe you've met the objectives that support the goals of your strategic plan. And maybe that's where you're hung up right now. Is it time to go back and take a look at what your goals really are, come to consensus? And then I would just challenge you, can you as a board make that decision on your own? Or do you need to bring a group of stakeholders together? Kind of the activity that Katie worked with you on this evening, sure, you can come to consensus, but do you need a bigger picture? Do you need to have stakeholders, students, staff, community members to help in that decision-making process? And that's a tough one. Sometimes I didn't say this, we talk about this in the stages of board development, but sometimes you have to go slow to go fast also. And maybe taking that step back to look at what the goals really are and where you really do want to be in the next 3 to 5 years. Talk about that. What are your thoughts when you hear that? Does it make sense? Doesn't make sense? Not the right time?
This is the quietest.
I think it's called crickets, Katie. Crickets, right? You can hear my chair squeaking now. Yeah, and really that's the idea behind the discussion tonight is, you've seen it in action now. Katie has led you through a couple of things, activities that have given you an opportunity to share, interact. But what's keeping you from making the really tough decisions? Because remember, this is about the students. This is about student achievement for all. And there's no right or wrong answer here either. Do you need more information? Do you need time? Do you need feedback from others? Does it tie into the style of promoter, supporter, controller, analyzer?
From my perspective here, the board has been very intent as a group on wanting to promote the district, maintain the excellence that exists, and to grow. They want to serve the current students well. They want to serve the future students well. And there's no secret there. And they want to provide great opportunities for not only our students and our staff, but they want the district to be a district that continues to be held in very high regard by other people within this region of the state. The dilemma that I see is that when you look at an option that we're looking at as a one-site elementary or a two-site elementary, updating our facilities and providing better space can be done in each one of those. And there's a strong belief that one site will serve our students better. It'll be more efficient, and you can add more reasons to the list. And on the opposite side, individuals accept that, but they also feel that by serving our students well as a whole, we need to provide a geographic advantage, a closeness to home, and maintain two schools. And it's important for our communities to retain those. So, to provide more data, I mean, we could deluge the board and the community with more data, but it'll be hard to come to a consensus on what will serve the district best. And it's not because we have 7 board members, or with Jill Bukins, who is now off the board, or the board members that preceded her. It's not that they don't want to do well for our students and put students and staff at the center and use that as a goal. It's just we're having difficulty now making a determination of what does that for us, what serves the district, what serves the students. And that's the big dilemma. So Michelle talked about how do we move away from this stalemate. That's not only the dilemma with the board, it's a dilemma within the community as well.
Right. And there are times that the data and the money and the people don't all add up, right? Aren't in agreement. Maybe people are saying we want to keep it at 3, but do we have the money to do that? Right? And then there's going to be others that say, can we be more efficient at 1? But are we going to keep our students, our community members? So everything doesn't always line up. So what we did talk about is you won't be making that decision tonight, right? So I want to be clear that's not what we're trying. That's not what you're trying to do there, and I don't think that's what Michelle was asking either. But so I think it is about stepping back. It's about refocusing. What do we want? What do we want? What can we agree on that we want in 3 to 5 years? And then how do we get there? So sometimes we have to kind of back into it as well.
And it does go back to the compromise and then building consensus. And sometimes it's smaller pieces that you agree upon to get to the bigger picture, if that makes any sense.
I feel like this is more of a long-term decision than a 3 to 5 years though thing for us to look at, because I think that's our biggest struggle is because of the fact that it is a long-term decision because it involves facilities. So I think that's why it makes it a harder decision, because it's long-term. It's not a 3 to 5 year decision. It's not where are we going tomorrow? It's where are we going to be in the future?
But that's also why a district has a vision, right? What do we envision our district, our students to be? Our students, when they get that diploma in hand, how do we envision them?
And tied into that also is, what are our values within the district? What are our beliefs? What are our values that we hold true for, again, all students and also our stakeholders?
Right.
What do the rest of the group think? Other comments? What information do you need? What would make the decision more helpful to you?
I think the decision that we're dealing with is different than a lot of the decisions that we make, in the fact that most of the decisions that we make at this table, once we make the decision, that's the way we go. But in the decision that we're dealing with, we're not the one that ultimately makes the decision. The stakeholders are the ones that make the decision, because they pay the bill and they're the ones that vote on it.
Yep,
So
good point.
regardless of if it's 7-0 or 4-3 or 5-2, this decision is made by the stakeholders ultimately.
It's true when they vote, right?
No, you have to listen to them, because they're the ones that make the decision, or we continue to go around and round and round.
I absolutely hear what you're saying. I think there's also that timing, but then also what kind of information people have, and I'm assuming, right? I'm guessing that your staff has worked really hard to make sure that the community has, good information to be making decisions. But it's also about time and place too. So, and then I know there's a variety of funds that are also coming up available. That tends to muddy the waters. But is that really? It seems like a lot of money, but is it enough? Those are all things to be looked at as well.
And I don't remember who said it, but and not here tonight, but if nothing changes, nothing changes. And how long can you continue with not changing anything or not taking action? Maybe the silver lining in this is, my understanding is that you are not in dire straits, correct? That you have to make a decision overnight, but at the same time, a decision needs to be made. So figuring out a process for that. And, I respect the fact that what the voters say, and that is important. So how do you work with your stakeholders to gain support and help give you direction? And once you get that direction, are you willing to listen to it, I guess, too?
And just to be clear, we are not on
no side. I know just enough to be dangerous, but obviously you have a big decision. Let me toss out this. In a very similar vein, when I was on the board, New Ulm School District, we have 3 communities, Hanska, Lafayette, and New Ulm. And when I was on the board, we had much smaller schools in Lafayette and Hanska. So kind of similar to what I believe your situation is, except Lafayette's only about 10 or 12 miles down the road, as is Hanska. But we were at the point of making similar decisions, and it was a very, very difficult, challenging time. You know, first before, and the question was, do we close one or both of the smaller schools? It was putting money into the smaller schools, or do you bring everybody into New Ulm? And those, as you've already learned, those decisions don't come easy. In the end, I think one school was closed. Eventually, another one was closed. But with that said, it was a different scenario because you have a much geographically larger, longer district to think about. And so for us, it was always what is best for students, but then you're also balancing that out. What's best for students based on the finances available. And so if you have students that are 10 miles out, they're not getting a quality education, they can get a better education in town or bringing them into New Ulm. You know, so similar but different, but just something to think about. We wrestled with that as well. And then there was the other aspect, we were looking at growth within the district. And so even at that time, closing a school meant that we might be kind of cramped in New Ulm. And was that going to be seen as a gimmick then for a new building? I don't know. Does any of that resonate with you, with the dynamics of the communities? And
Yeah, absolutely. We've been working on this for 10 years or more, right, as
Wow.
a community.
Okay.
And, you know, we had 4 superintendents, and we've had to, you know, we've struggled, as most districts do, financially. We've had to raise a referendum 4 times over that time frame, of which
Okay.
required 8 votes, right? And when they do pass, it's less than 2%.
Wow.
We've had a 1-site option on the ballot twice, which failed, and we've had a 2-site option on there once, which failed. So we've,
Okay.
you know, I think we've seen just a lot of, you know, we have some concern as to where we go next because of that. We just haven't got support either side.
Right.
And for your stakeholders too, at some point, if you don't make a decision, somebody else higher up outside of the district will make it for you. And that's not the way you want to go either. So, go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm what I'm thinking here is, you know, I think a place to start would be to look at what you established 3 years ago in your strategic plan. And it's okay for the 8 of you to get together and just look through it together and say, man, this has changed a little bit, this has changed a little, right? But to just, that might center you a little bit more in helping you kind of, you look at it and say, no, we don't agree with that anymore, or we need to tweak it a little bit, or yeah, that's still where we're at. And then how do we get there? I think that looking at what you established and deciding if that still resonates with you now, and that's where it's going to maybe help center you a little bit more in talking about, thinking about the decisions, but also in that, you know, sharing that, then deciding when and how you're going to share that with your community. You know, let's bring it back to here. You know, we need to sometimes come back to the center to really think about the basics.
Yeah, I think Katie's right with that, because not knowing what your goals were, you might learn something about curriculum, you might learn something about staffing that will come into play that suddenly makes the decision very easy.
And that will help you in having the conversation with your community, because you can say, look, this is what we did 3 years ago. This is what you were saying, right? And this is how we made this decision 3 years ago. So Michelle, I know you asked the question, you know, how does this help us tonight? So, or moving forward, has any of this conversation helped, or what, is there anything different that any of you are looking from us that we can help with before we wrap up this evening?
Or do you have more questions? Does it leave you with more questions?
All right. Well, I'm going to start an exercise here. I mean, this is a wrapping up exercise. Don't worry, I'm not bringing you to another 50 minutes of building consensus, right? But so let's talk about what did you like about this evening? So what went well, and what is it that we want to work on? What are we going to do moving forward after tonight? True, false, or question mark?
Analyzer, supporter, controller,
Great.
promoter.
Did anything go well this evening?
Nobody wants to answer.
You're not shy. We already know that. So
We'll take a question mark on that one. Yeah,
Okay.
Very good.
the box around it.
Anything anybody would like to propose that we work on?
Couple more lines on this robbery thing.
Okay.
okay, that's fair. More well. Go ahead.
No, that's fine.
So the message there is needing more information about something, obviously.
I think it's a good reminder for us, just, I mean, we all know that we operate differently, but I think, just going through these different types of style and role, the promoter, supporter, controller, analyzer, I think it's just a good reminder. I mean, some of us, get that stuff at us all the time. I get it at work all the time. So it's one of those things that's at the top of my mind. Maybe not everybody has that. That's one of the first things I do when I'm in a meeting is I try to figure out those types of, so I understand how their process works. But I just think it's a good reminder for maybe some who don't have that, but.
Mm-hmm. All right.
From the very, very simple robbery activity, I changed my mind 6 out of 11 times in that process. And I think everyone else at the table changed their minds. So there are other factors that are made known to us or stressed to us or things that we kind of overlooked that help us see things differently. So I think all 7 board members tonight were influenced by other things that were said at the table. There wasn't a one that stood firm in a previous conviction. There's some point in which they all change. So when you tie that into the other activities, whether you're promoter, supporter, controller, analyzer, there's something that hit someplace along there that caused us to view things differently. And since we are at a stalemate with our facilities project, we need to find something that helps us all understand how we get to a solution that our voters support, that will be for the betterment of the district, the students, the staff, and our community members. So it's a huge challenge, but I see that there's an opportunity to get there.
So when we make the suggestion about, kind of recentering and looking at your strategic plan, that does not mean it has to be a big process. Like we're going to spend the next, 8 weeks redoing all of this. It's an evening, right? It's an afternoon. Let's look at it, because this is where, you would have done definitely done some exploring right before in figuring out what that strategic plan is. Okay. And owning it. And granted, not everybody was on the board at the time, but I think most of you would have been, right? All but Kayla, maybe Darren.
Mm-hmm. And it is important for everybody to buy in to the strategic plan as well.
Mm-hmm. So I guess I would recommend deciding you're going to take a couple hours and to look at it. And, there's been times, certainly Gail and I have been with groups before that have said, we don't have time for that. And I'm just going to be frank and push back. You don't not have time for
Have
that.
time. That's right.
You really need to bring it back to the center.
Well, and I think with this issue with the building too, you know, if you said you've been working on it 10 years, wow, folks, you know, how are you willing to let this go another 10 years? And what will happen in the 10 years?
I think the thing that I appreciate about maybe framing our next discussion about facilities as looking at our strategic plan is we've been having the same conversation the same way for so long that looking at the strategic plan as the foundation or the jumping off point for our discussion, it frames it a different way, and maybe we'll end up right back at the same place. I don't know. But I think it's a different approach than we've taken before as we've talked about facilities at the board table.
How do the rest feel about that? Anybody want to react to Michelle's comment or agree, disagree?
Is there, I guess, to piggyback off that question, is there anyone that feels like that's a step back for us and not in a good way? That's not, doesn't seem like the best place to start.
I don't know. I don't necessarily think that. I feel like that like this whole process since the last time started with the strategic plan. So I'm just in my head going, what are we going to go back and change? Because that's how this process started in the first place, was when Barry came, right? If I'm remembering everything correctly, because I was involved in the strategic plan, not as a board member, but as a facility or a
community member, maybe.
Yes, there wasn't very many of us, but what I'm just saying is I have to go, like I said, I know what Gary's talking about. I have to go back and look at it to see. I don't know that it's going to change our minds a lot. I mean, that's going to change anything, because that's where this process started and that's how we got to where we got to. Maybe I'm completely wrong and maybe we'll look at it. I mean, I'm fine with looking at it, but that's my thought, is that was the start of this last referendum, really is what it was the strategic plan. Maybe does anyone disagree with that?
Oh, I think it's a step backwards. I'm not saying a backward step is wrong. I'm just saying it is going to be going back to where we're going backwards. That's probably what we need to do. Yeah. But so not knocking on it, saying we're going back, but that's what's going to happen. And if we don't, then we're just sitting here.
Right, like another 10 years, like Darren said, we got to come up with something that we can get past.
Right, and my only point was that I don't know that going back to the strategic plan that we're going to change anything about that plan is what I'm saying. I'm not saying it's a bad idea.
The way that, so looking at the conversations that we've had about facilities, the way that you interpret the strategic plan is different than the way that I interpret it, and we've never had that discussion. Do you know what I mean?
But she's talking about going and reevaluating and changing our strategic plan, right? Isn't that what we're talking about?
Maybe there's no changes to it. Maybe it's, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say one thing that concerns me. Well, two things that concern me, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. You talk about Barry. So was Barry the primary leader with that? And then the comment was made, you didn't have a lot of people involved in the process. And maybe that is part of it as well. A third thing actually that concerns me is usually we encourage boards. Remember, go back to that board governance model of having an up-to-date strategic plan that is your visionary roadmap that guides you. And so, if you're not having that sitting right at the board table, what are you using for direction?
We have that. But I'm talking about the bigger.
Okay. Well, we had the community members involved, I think, and most of us are, Terry, me, Michelle, Maya, for sure, were, I guess, and I
on
think.
the board.
Had a staff group, had an administrator.
Talked a lot about curriculum and the future and becoming more of a magnet school and all kinds of work on the both ends, the preschool through the art, arts and CLEP credits and
That's all
Okay.
based around too, it all
After
ties to our mission statement. I mean,
Right.
it's all tied together.
I'm not saying we shouldn't look at it again for sure, but I think we put a lot of energy into it. Maybe it needs a rework though. I don't know.
A tweak or, like I said, Kayla's new and maybe she wants to be part of going through it, but
Yeah, that would be good.
I'm not saying we can't look at it. I'm just saying, I just feel like that was the start of the process. And so I just don't know if that much has changed to get to here. That's all, my only comment. I'll leave it at that.
No, I think too, I think it'd be a good refresher to go back and look at it, because we have it, but we haven't really looked at it or discussed it ever since.
And does your staff know what's in your strategic plan? How are they linked in? Does everybody know the mission statement, the vision statement? Is that what's guiding you in your decisions?
Say our mission statement at every meeting. So that's something
Okay.
that's fresh in our mind every meeting.
Perfect, good.
Yeah, I think the staff's aware of it, Dale, right? I mean, they've been
I think so.
made aware of it.
Is that something where we need to have a poster somewhere in the hallways of the school so that, or does our strategic plan need to be on posted in each classroom to people understand? I mean, I'm just throwing that question out there because
Good questions.
I don't know that we've ever had that discussion with staff or a reminder since we once, came up with it. Like Gary said, we did spend a lot of time going through that.
Right, and I think it's also good to go back and look at it and see where have we made progress, right? What have we done? Because it should, again, as Gail said, be that guiding document. So we should be looking at it frequently to understand, well, we're making progress here, we're making progress here. Oh, not so much over here, but when and how do we do that? So you should be using it as a measurement tool of how you are making progress. Now that's the controller in me, right? I like my checklists, right? And but it can help you identify if you're making progress or not.
And if things have been crossed off the list, to make Katie happy here, but if things have been crossed off the list, it means that the objectives to support the goals have been met. So what are those next things that you're going to be working towards? And then is there transparency? Again, board supports it, staff supports it, students are aware of it, and even our community is aware of it.
And celebrate where you are crossing things off, and let your community know. We know we've had this vote and we're kind of at a stalemate here or whatever, but we've done these things, right? We are making progress. Now, what do we need to do next to make more progress? Right. All right. Anything else anybody would like to add to the chart here? How about celebrate progress? Okay. All right. Anything anybody else from the group or from Gail as we look at finishing out our evening here?
Anything you wished we would have talked about, wished we would have addressed? Things we can help you with, things we can help reflect on for you? Advice?
No, thank you, ladies.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I would just challenge you. I think what I've seen tonight, and Katie mentioned before, we've worked with a lot of board teams across the state, large schools, small schools, and north and south and east and west and everything in between. And what I see with you as a board team is a wonderful group. You are articulate. You seem to be respectful. You seem to have a good time this evening. It seems like you are making good decisions and you're able to make decisions. You got one thing that seems like it must be a hang up for you. So the challenge is to figure out how you can go back through that robbery type of activity and come to consensus, and what's it going to take. And Katie and I mean, we can toss out suggestions. We don't have the answers. You live in the community, you work in the community, you know the people, and you can make those decisions much better than us. But don't be afraid to make some big changes and figure out, I think going back to, Katie didn't push you to identify your leadership style, just thinking about if there's some leadership styles there too that are holding you back a little bit, where you need more information, or what is it that's holding you up? I would feel really bad, Katie, if 10 years from now we came back and they were at the same spot. I hope that's not the case.
No.
But yeah. Okay.
Absolutely. But I think sometimes things feel like a step back, but really in order to make progress, sometimes we do have to step back. So, but we're, feel free to give any of us a call. I appreciate those of you that had the time or were able to reach out to me in prepping for this evening. So I appreciate that. And we're here, here's Twitter and Facebook right up in the corner here. Here's our phone number. Feel free to give us a call. Anything else we can do for you. I appreciate being able to connect with you.
Yep, we are definitely at your service. So don't be shy about contacting us. If you just want to talk some things through, bounce some ideas off of us, we can give you some suggestions, and we're happy to listen.
Yep, and we'll work on putting a summary together over the next couple of weeks of what we talked about here, and we'll send that to the superintendent and the board chair, and then you can use that as another piece to have some discussion around as well, because sometimes you'll read it. I always say, if you read it and you can come to a consensus that you don't agree with what I wrote, I'm okay with that too, right? So whatever, but we will get that summary sent out to you in the next couple weeks. So, all right. Thank you so much for having us here this evening, even though it was virtually. I think we had an opportunity to get to know you, so we appreciate that as well.
It was a good opportunity to meet with you, and thank you again for all that you are doing on behalf of students and public education. It is important work, it's meaningful work, and I can tell that your hearts are definitely in the right place.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
So your community is lucky to have you at the board table, all of you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you very much, Gail and Katie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
With that being said, I will ask for a motion to adjourn our meeting tonight.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Hi.
Opposed, the same sign.
Beat me to it.